Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, badasses. Welcome. Today we're going to be shooting the shit, so anything can happen today, right, Cate?
Right. Yep. You don't know.
You don't know.
It's a wild card.
It is, and it's a wild card. And so I also want to just take a moment. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we got some new shirts today. And so we wanted to shake things up. And so we got some new shirts. I'm loving it. And I want to thank Amanda McLean for helping us out to do the logos on the shirts. And so I just love that I have that resource so close to me.
Yes. And so kind of her to do this for us. I love it.
It is. I've had some people asking me about shirts, and I have been investigating still, trying to find the right thing to be able to create our own shirts. And so, because I've had some people asking about wanting shirts, wanting to purchase stuff. So,
yeah, well, let's try to get it. We'll try to get done like sometime this fall, right? Like,
yep,
people can buy their own shirts.
Yeah. And so Renee, she said, good morning. Love the badass shirts.
And good morning, Renee.
And Eric, good badass
morning.
And then I'm not sure. I probably will need to pull up the Facebook just to see who this person might be. But just as a reminder, if you can go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and give StreamYard permission so we can see who this person is. And so, but thank you for joining us. And I know that we probably have some other lurkers out there as well. So if you would be so bold, since we're just shooting the shit today, be so bold to just add your name and let us know who you are and let us know that you're also out there.
Yes, we would love to know who you are and to say hello.
And so, Cate, today we're just going to be shooting the shit, and you and I were like, so what's sort of going on with us lately? And so today I want to make sure that it's interactive, that we want to hear from everyone else as well. Like, what do you have going on with your life that maybe you want to bounce off of us, or just to understand what's also going on with others in the universe?
Yes. Yeah, please. And feel free to also, let us know if you have questions or thoughts about past episodes. These shoot the shit episodes that we're going to do somewhat regularly are great opportunities to just also be like, okay, do you remember this topic we talked about? And you brought up this happened to me. And then I thought, wow, this could be helpful to other people or whatever, like if something helped you or something didn't or something resonated later, we'd love to hear your stories. And like I said, these shooting the shit episodes are great times for that. So just go ahead and drop your comments, whatever you want. We have some stuff that we've thought about bringing to the table, so we can certainly guide the conversation as well. But it's always more fun when you guys are involved too.
Exactly. And while you guys are thinking about that, I also do want to remind you about some upcoming episodes that we have.
Yeah.
And so I've gone ahead and posted this next one, and it should be really good. And so next Friday, we're going to be talking with Thomas LeMay, and we're going to be talking about normalizing men's mental health. And I think that this is a great topic. He is in the construction industry, and as you can imagine, that's the most manly position I can really think about. But also some interesting stats that we have related to that as well, in how it impacts people from a mental health perspective. So it'll be a great conversation. And then Cate, you have someone that's going to be joining us the following week, right?
Yes. My friend Deborah Lukovich. She will be talking with us about the subconscious and midlife transformation. And she is, talk about being willing to be vulnerable. She will just like lay it out there for you guys. So, and it can be kind of juicy and fun. And she has this great ability to like, bear herself, open, but also like kind of see joy and hilarity in, you know, the things that she has done as well. So I think that's going to be an awesome conversation.
Yeah. And I'm super excited about that one, Cate. So I got to tell you, you and I were on talking with her beforehand just to talk about what she knows and things like that. And then you had to jump off and I felt like I could talk to her forever. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. I'm like, I just love all of the different things that she could potentially talk about. I almost feel like we might need 2 episodes for her, honestly.
Yeah, we might need to bring her back because she's amazing. And I knew her before she even got into some of this stuff, you know, like, so, you know, I met her 12 years ago, you know, and when we were involved in a really in-depth conversation about race relations, very interesting stuff. So, yeah, it was. So, you know, before she got divorced, before she kind of had this midlife stuff that she's going through, this transformation. So very, very fun.
Yeah. And so I'm going to bring up a couple more people that are letting us know they're there. Okay, let's do this badass shit, Bruce says.
Yeah, Bruce.
So
yeah,
funny.
buddy.
I posted out on LinkedIn again, the shooting the shit, and I had something that didn't have the asterisk on the word shit again, and it stopped me. Again, I was like, oh man. And so it does not like the cuss words, but yet it allowed ass. It's so weird.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And so, and then Kim, good morning, badasses. And so good morning. So awesome. I also want to remind everyone or let everybody know that after Deborah's episode, Cate and I will be back to our schedule of sort of going back and forth between topics that we're going to talk about and then having a person come on. So we're then going to do the following week on what is in our control versus out of our control. And I'm looking forward to that topic as well.
Yeah, that intertwines with so many other topics we've talked about, you know, inner critical voice, confidence, you know, negative thoughts, all that shit, because, you know, you can really find yourself straddling 2 worlds when you know, let your head take over or your, you know, the pessimism that seems to want to live rent free in our heads, right?
Yeah.
When you let that take over, it can be so hard to focus on, you know, what's truly in your control.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that one.
Jesse said, such language, my innocent ears don't know how to respond.
Oh no.
Well, you might need to cover them. I'm just saying.
Yes.
Jesse, I think he'll be okay. And then Carrie says, happy Friday.
I love it. Friday.
I know. I'd like to hear what her tone is. I was applying some tone to mine.
Right. Happy Friday.
Oh my gosh. She said, did everyone get the chance to see the gorgeous super full moon on Tuesday? Yeah, we're going to have 2 this month. So August actually we'll have 2.
Yes. I had my family had a visitor that I have only seen twice in the past 18 years. But this is a person that I was so close to in college, super close to, but she moved to Portland and we just had not been able to stay in touch. But she came to visit us on Tuesday and we had a full moon fire. We did some rituals and burned some sage that she had harvested on her way across the country. I shit you not. So she stopped in South Dakota. She's like such a woodsy person, you know, like just a real naturalist. So she stopped and harvested wild sage from South Dakota, dried it and brought it to our house, and then was able to, she's a teacher, so she was able to tell the kids all about it, and we burned it, and it was beautiful. It was so much fun. Anyway, got too cloudy. We could not see the moon, but Oscar had been visiting, and then later that night, after everyone was like beat tired, you know, I had to take Oscar home, and we were just kind of riding in silence, thinking about the night. And just because we were tired, you know, it was almost midnight. And then all of a sudden he's just like, Mom, there's the moon. And we pulled over. I even forgot to tell Jenna about this because it was so late. You know, we pulled over and we just looked at it. We were like, holy shit, that is a beautiful moon.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was wonderful. Were you able to catch it?
I was not actually, but I did get time to sort of meditate because of the energy that the moon brings. And I got to tell you, it's weird. Everybody that I talk to that, you know, empaths and things like that, they felt like it was a lot of craziness, like right before the moon, just a lot of energy. And it was sort of like almost you needed to pull back and sort of spend a little time with yourself. And so I did feel that as well. I don't necessarily consider myself an empath the way a lot of other people do. For whatever reason, I feel like I'm able to, I don't know, put up better boundaries maybe, or I don't know. But for me, it does impact me just as far as like energy and things like that. And so there were a couple of other comments that came in here. So Bruce said, yes, I had a great view at night and the next morning. And
cool.
Carrie also posted something that I think is interesting. She said, who knows how to get started doing a podcast? People keep telling me to start one and no clue how to start. And so Jesse did offer to her that, you know, that he's willing to chat with her and she would DM him. But did you have some ideas?
Yes. Pause. If you're going to start a podcast, or if people have told you this, then I think Sarah and I need to get you on the show.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. We actually had thought about it, Carrie, just so you know. One of the things that with Cate and I sometimes not always being able to, like, as someone is traveling, we've thought about having Carrie on as a guest speaker and just doing shoot the shit or something like that. So, hey, I could just send you the StreamYard link right now and you could join us.
Yeah, jump on.
You know me.
But totally. I'm here for it. But if that doesn't work, then we need to talk about a future time because I want to know. I want to know what are your good topics? Is it going to be like all of Carrie, what Carrie brings to the world? I want more of it. I want to know.
Yeah. Her biking, walking in this world and all the amazing things that she discovers along the way. Yes.
And what a great mentor on this journey that you will have in Jesse. So, and there, I mean, Jesse offered to share. Now I'm just saying, I'm putting a whole nother level on it. Now you're going to mentor her and this is going to be amazing. And
oh my gosh.
It's all coming together, folks.
It is. And so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna send Carrie. I'm sending it via LinkedIn. I'm sending you the link if you want to join us live. And I see you pop down there. I will just add you to the StreamYard because that's how shooting the shit we are today.
Yep. That's how shooting the shit we are.
I just sent you the link. If you want to come on live, let's do it.
Yes, Bruce is supportive. Yes.
Jesse
says, do it.
Jesse said, do it. All right, I sent it. It's up to her whether she wants to join or not. And she said your inflection was perfect. And he said, let's get her on.
Yeah.
All right. So if we see you, we're going to pop you up here.
Yes.
All right. So Cate, you had an update for us in the meantime. You had some things that you wanted to share as far as where is Oscar? How are things going?
Yes, because our last shooting the shit, we talked a bit about him. He's doing so well on his own, guys. It's been just an amazing thing to witness, him come into his own and explore all these new things that he's exploring right now. So he got his job. So he's working at the steel mill. He's loving it. He's almost got his driver's license. We had a little snafu. He didn't, a little bit of, that the kiddo that actually was going before him had a big issue come up, and it kind of spooked Oscar. So the kid before him actually got pulled over during his driving test.
What? By the police?
Yes. By the police. Yes. And also,
you're gonna flunk your driver's test.
Right. Now here's the screwed up thing is that he did not do anything wrong.
Oh.
So the dad, so there is so it's a whole nother story. It could be a whole nother episode because it could get into race things and all sorts of stuff that we don't, but it freaked Oscar out. This whole conversation he had with this other kiddo and dad and the same instructor literally happened 30 seconds before he got in the car to do his road test. And he immediately took a wrong turn. He immediately went into the wrong lane on literally where the driveway from the DMV spits out. He went into the wrong lane, corrected it immediately. It wasn't a big deal in his eyes. But unfortunately, the instructor, it was an automatic fail. He didn't tell him that because he felt so bad about, he got it. He understood why Oscar was freaked because he had been there when this other kid was describing his experience.
Oh my God.
So he let him finish the rest of the test, brought him back, made sure to tell him like, yeah, you did miss a couple of blind checks and blinkers, but the sillier ones, like, when the guy told him to pull over and park, to do a hill thing, Oscar forgot to check his blind spot, when he was pulling, those types of things. But the instructor said, you would have passed had this other thing not happened.
I gotcha.
So I had to, it's an automatic failure, but I wasn't about to turn you around immediately after everything that you had just witnessed. I wanted you to actually have the experience, so come back next week to take it again.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm glad that he at least let him continue forward because at least he gave him further experience and could give him that feedback. So he also didn't mess up in other areas as well the next time. So.
I was so appreciative of that as well. And how upsetting would it have been if he had said, all right, you're done. Turn, it would have been another, for his next time, he would have been even more nervous. Right now he's feeling like, okay, I'm actually a little less nervous because now I know what it's like. I got through a big issue, but I also got reassurance that I do know how to do this and I'll be fine the next time. So, yeah.
So Carrie said, oh, sweet Lord.
Yeah.
And then she said, maybe next week.
Yes, it was intense, crazy stuff happening.
All right. So I have to also tell you that this week, everybody's been reacting to the fact that my daughter's already back in school. And everybody's like, what? Yeah. So down in Georgia, we're back on the 2nd of August. There was only one other person that was like, oh yeah, we started on the Monday on the 31st of July. That has one other person that's been earlier, but everybody else is like, okay, we're not until mid-August. We're not until around Labor Day, things like that. But I've been checking in with my daughter on how things are going with her school and the teacher she had. On Monday, we did an open house. And the open house, I got to meet all of the different teachers. And it was funny. We ranked the teachers sort of the same. I was asking her, I was like, so what do you think about that teacher? What do you think about that teacher? And we ranked them sort of the same. But the one that she loves the most that I also just loved is Miss Johnson. And so when we went into her room, she had a good vibes. It was a a sign that was illuminated, and then a fluorescent light, and then she had groovy, and just like the room was decked out in just like amazing words and things like that, and she just was
Yeah.
the coolest person ever. She's also on the literature, on the language arts side, which is the area that Riley doesn't like the most. She doesn't like spelling. She doesn't she
Reading. Yeah.
doesn't like reading, but she loves writing. And so I was glad to hear that she was going to have writing a part of each of their assignments. They're going to be, instead of just at the end, they're going to be doing a lot more writing. But one of the things that she was just telling me this morning is they gave her a paper, and it was questions like, what are your 3 favorite artists? What are your 3 things you want to do when you grow up? What do you do after school to decompress? What is your favorite fast food place that has the best French fries? By the way, she said, I don't like fast food. You got to have the homemade fries that my dad makes. What did you do over the summer, and what is something you are grateful for? But they had like a bunch of others as well. But I just loved those questions because as a teacher,
Yeah.
how much could you learn about someone based on these types of answers? You really sort of learning about the type of student that you have, and potentially some of the things that you might have to deal with on other sides of teaching, which is really dealing with the person and some of the things they might be dealing with as well. So I just
Yeah.
loved all of these questions, but it really made me sort of think about some of the best teachers that I had growing up and what it is they taught me. So my question for the audience today is, what is what is it that makes a good teacher? What are the best teachers that you had, and what were some of the things that they did that made
Mm,
you think that they were the best teacher? And so,
yeah.
Kate, what about you? So while people are adding that potentially in, what teacher stood out to you, and why did they stand out to you?
Yeah. I have a couple of teachers that really stood out to me from high school. So I had my debate coach who I actually never took a class with her. She was never
Oh,
my teacher, but she was a teacher. The reason why she was never my teacher is because she taught debate. That was her class, and I was in the debate program, and there was no reason for me to go to her class. Because I was already like above where the students were that were in her class. So um but she was so unique, and so she was willing to show us her real personality, like
mhm.
she was who she was, just so uniquely herself, and that really resonated with me at the time. I just really enjoyed her. So her name was Doris Sexton, and I'm still friends with her, so I still see her.
Yeah.
I still see her once in a while. We email back and forth. I sent her a card last year,
Mhm.
out of the blue, because she's incredibly generous, incredibly sweet, but she also has a real gruff side to her, which I
Uh-huh.
really enjoyed as a person too. So she's not like the typical nurtury kind of a, like a lot of female teachers that are very caring, like she is, and very generous. You would think had this like real soft, you know,
Mhm.
outer appearance, and she did not. She's definitely, as a person, she's a little more gruffer, which made her all the more interesting to me, because
Mm.
she didn't come across as like a sweet.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
you liked her uniqueness,
Yes.
and you
Yeah.
liked that she was generous, but it sounds like she was also very, maybe a little, could be stern, little
Yes.
gruff,
Yeah.
as well. So you liked the
Right.
structure, maybe the structure, but the sweetness combination.
Yes, yes, exactly. And her husband was also a teacher who, he was a coach as well. And I really adored him. He was soft all the way through. Like, so
Yeah.
it was a husband wife duo. And she was definitely the gruffer one of the two. So, which in a lot of ways actually mimicked my home life, because my dad was a lot softer on the outside than my mom was, even though both of them were very, very sweet. But
I gotcha. Yeah. So
yeah.
Dodie added something, and welcome, Dodie. She said, teachers that understand one mistake does not define you as a student, and teachers that treat everyone as equals no matter your level of smartness.
Ah, that's such a good point, Dodie.
Yeah. I think that that's super important. And it's interesting. I was having a conversation with someone here recently, and I think the way we address people is also super important. That it's the action you took may have been a mistake, or it may have been a bad decision, but that doesn't make you a bad person. And so I think that that's super important to keep in mind as we're communicating to people, that we differentiate the action from the person, because that's really when kids are, especially at this age, and honestly for adults too, the more you focus on them being a bad person versus the action being maybe not the smartest choice, that can really impact people.
Yeah. And that's reality. Everyone's brains are still developing. As adults, we make mistakes, but these are humans who are literally still having their brain formed as they are experiencing life. They're bound to make mistakes, and the way and the way that they're interacted with from the adults in their life will make all the difference. I love that you made that point, Dodie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also important to understand as adults as well, that that's one of the things that I've always said. Like I told my bosses, I was like, I'm going to make some mistakes. It's going to happen. And then you have to expect mistakes from people that you're working with as well, and from your kids, because honestly, that's the best way to learn, is through mistakes. Because if you don't have that, if you're just going by what people tell you, it doesn't really resonate until you actually make the mistake. Then you're like, oh, yeah, now I understand what you're talking about.
Yep. Now it hits home.
And so for me, one of the teachers I actually have two that stand out the most. One was Mr. Veith, and he was my choir teacher in high school. And the thing that I loved about him is he had a trash can up at the top of the wall. It was hanging up. It was standing up there, and it said, "Yes, you." And then it was referencing the can. Yes, you can. And so he had that trash can up there, and it's something that always resonated with me. And I really took to it even later on in life, really understanding what it is he was trying to tell us as kids. And so with my daughter, for example, when she was doing gymnastics, they would, anytime she said she couldn't, she only made that mistake once. She said, well, I can't. And then everybody had to do burpees, the entire class, because anybody that said they couldn't, then everybody was like, oh, crap. Now I have to do burpees. And so it was a way for them to learn. You don't say you can't. Hey, I'm still trying. I'm still learning. So it was about music, and maybe I can't hit that note quite yet, or I'm not able to do this yet, but it's having a positive thought of you can. And so I just loved that. When I think back on this particular teacher, he was just a really positive person, and he did it all through music.
I love that. That's amazing.
The other person that stands out to me the most, it was actually it's really two social studies teachers that sort of remind me of each other. And I only can remember one of them. I can see the face of the other one. Maybe if Leslie's on or someone else, but it's Mr. Zolman. And then for whatever reason, I can't remember the other social studies teacher's name, but I loved both of them because they focused on telling girls that they didn't have the same rights as boys, but they did it purposely. Like they were riling us up and saying, oh, but you're a girl. You don't, why would you vote? You don't need to vote. And all the girls were like, what? And so like he was getting us to understand that we had these rights, and he just would like tick us off on purpose, and he'd do it in like a joking way. And when I think about it, it was to get us to understand that if we don't vote, if we don't do the things that we should do to show our rights, then we have no right to complain. And
Yeah.
so is one of the things that he taught us, but I loved that he like riled us all up, and we'd get mad at him for saying some of the stuff that he would say to us.
Ah, I love that. What a
Yeah.
guy. That's great.
So I have a couple people that have come in. So Bruce says, making the value of the subject clear and delineating, I can't say that word, the core concepts so they are understandable as for their usefulness. And so making the
Yeah.
subject clear so that whatever it is that you're talking about. It's funny because I was talking with my sister or my daughter about this, and she was getting mad at her social studies teacher. She said she just was over explaining it. She was explaining it to me as if we were a kid. And I was like, well, Riley, I said, that actually is a good thing, I think, but help me understand why that was upsetting you. And I wasn't quite understanding why it was making her mad. I think maybe she felt like it was talking down to her. I don't know. And I said, well, it's interesting because in business, I actually tell people, tell me like I'm a 4-year-old, like pretend like I know nothing about this topic. Tell me as if I'm 4 years old. And so I like that sometimes, that type of communication, because I don't want people to assume that I understand everything about the topic.
Oof. But do you remember when you were a kid though? Do you remember thinking like, oh my God, I know this. Stop telling me this. I know it. Like I can kind of remember feeling that way. And I've watched my own children feel that way. And I think it's a personality type that some of us just have, like, I feel like 2 of my kiddos were just born really truly believing that they know what the fuck is up, like, and what are we here? Oscar's one of them. He just always kind of rejected the very idea of having parents, like from birth. He kind of was like, you know what? I'm pretty smart. I got this. Like, get out of my way, And Breland is the same way. She's just like, this is my world. You're just like, you're here. You're a part of it, but pretty sure I'm calling the shots.
I don't remember being like that. If anything, the only thing I remember is my dad, he was left-handed. And so I feel like sometimes left-handed and right-handed people think differently. And he would try to explain something. He was trying to explain math to me, and he got like all these pennies out to try to explain this to me. I was like, Dad, can you please tell me in a different way? I don't understand. And he would tell me the exact same way. And I was like,
okay.
Stop. And so I don't remember feeling like I knew everything. If anything, I was constantly trying to absorb what everyone was saying, and I was trying to understand it from like their point of view. And so, Carrie she said, my best teachers believed I could do more things than I thought I was capable of. I love that. I try to do that a lot with people. And helped me find that belief in myself. I always struggled with math, but I ended up taking 5 math classes in high school because I learned that while I really had to work hard, I could do it. Still friends with 2 of my math teachers. I love that. And so I love it when people push people. I feel like I do that a lot. Like, I'm like, no, you can do it. And don't allow people don't allow your mind to limit you. Don't allow others to limit you. There's so much possibility of what we can do in life. We just have to figure out the path of how we're going to approach it. And I also suggest talking to other people that have been successful. So for example, Carrie's going to talk to Jesse and understand what he is doing related to the multiple podcasts that he's involved in. And he's also involved with lots of other people that are in podcasting as well, which, by the way, I'm going to be learning from him and others later on today. So I do this, I've signed up with him. He does something called bungee jumping. And it's really about, I love just learning other things. And we've done some really cool exercises. I actually had to miss last one because I was on vacation, but he has posed certain questions to us. And Cate, I actually posed this question to you, but I would also just love to pose it to the audience. So the question for this week, and I've asked multiple people this question: if you could be successful, if you were guaranteed success in something and you were guaranteed not to fail, what would you do? And so I got to tell you, I'm going to be explaining some of these answers that I got, but I had so many people that really struggled with answering this question. They were like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I found it interesting that people were struggling with this. And then some of the answers, my husband, the first thing he said was, buy a lottery ticket. Like, if I'm guaranteed not to fail, then I'm going to buy a lottery ticket.
Right.
And so I'm curious what people think about that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's one of the things that you kind of, I think, like, you immediately go toward. I think a lot of, I struggled a little bit with answering it. I did kind of dig deeper and think, like, okay, really, what would I do? Where do I feel like I lack? What am I, how I first read the question or took the question in was like, well, there isn't much that I'm enjoying what I do. So I'm not afraid to fail at something. I feel like if I wanted to go do it, I could. And I'm really in a great lane right now in terms of what I am doing. But then it was a good exercise to kind of push myself to think outside the box, right? Like, what else out there? Like, what are other things I've thought about doing? And then there was something like, well, if I only had the money, I could do this, or if I only had this, I could do that, and so then I was able to kind of push myself a little bit outside the box and think about, okay, well, what would I do?
Yeah. So yours was investing, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So it was honestly similar to Jay's. I was like, okay, because I love what I do. I get a lot of pleasure out of it. I would say 80% of the time I'm really happy in my career, right? And I feel like if people are honest with themselves, as long as they're hitting, 80 or 90% of the time, like, that's pretty good. You can't love something all the time. Right. So I was like, but Jenna and I have talked about, we have a lot of beliefs about the foster care system and adoption system because we've been involved in it for so long. And we have beliefs about what could be done better and where some of the focus and attention should go on. And for us, it's really all about trying to help these families stay together.
Yeah.
We look at our two daughters and we are like, this is a shame, like, we adore you and love you. And there's a whole group of people out there that don't get this from you, So we force that issue and really work hard to keep those connections. And that's great. But that's taught us that there's, like, all these gaps, right? There's these gaps in the system where people aren't really giving the support to keep their families together.
Yeah.
It seems like there's more support for after a child is removed than for when a child is still in the family. So Jen and I have a ton of ideas on, okay, so we could, like, put a program together and these things could be involved and these, all these different things, and all the different therapies and the things that we've learned about that could help. What if the parent was involved in that too, right? So the parent was getting, like, coaching and therapy right along with the kiddo, and it was all designed around staying together. So my answer to your question was, I would learn about how to get really good at investing so I could make more money to fund this, to not only fund awesome experiences for my own family, of course, but awesome experiences for other families. And then, the hope would be that once we got the model right, we could scale it and do it for others. So,
I love that idea. I've always felt like if I could do anything, it would actually be towards kids and parents, like at
Yeah.
the early stage of things, because I
Yes.
feel like as you get older, you become less likely to want to change. But at an earlier age, if you could learn some of the things that you really need related to coping and setting boundaries and really the topics that we're talking about. And for me, that was one of the ways that I could at least give back to society is, okay, here are things that I've learned.
Right.
And, if someone joins and if it's, maybe it's a teen or maybe it's, someone earlier on as they're starting to have kids, for me, that was sort of my hope is that we would be able to have some of those individuals as they're starting to learn how to be a parent because we really impact our kids. And I'm so thankful that I actually had kids later on just because I
Yeah.
feel like mentally I was much more prepared than if I
Mhm.
was younger. But I also know the con of that is I'm not as physical as I've gotten older. And so I miss out on that part. And that's what some of the people that I've talked to that were like, oh, but I can't imagine not being young and being vibrant enough to go do all of these different types of things. And that's a valid point as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see both sides, but I
Mhm.
would go with you after having done it young
Yeah.
and coming out the other side, I mean, I'm younger than you, but I have my oldest kiddo is older than yours.
Yes.
And I would have waited. Not be
Mhm.
not I don't have any regrets. It was my
Right.
journey and it was our journey, but um had I been able to get my own coping skills on board and
Mhm.
and learn how to regulate myself before throwing 6 other mini humans into the mix, that
Right.
probably would have served us all a little better. But
Yeah.
but this is a great time for Kim's comment right here.
Yes.
Mistakes are how we often learn.
Mhm.
So Kim is a teacher.
Mhm.
Um,
Special
she
education. She was special
Yes,
education. Yeah.
yes. And so I wish she had been my teacher because, man, she is such a good nurturer. I can't imagine
Mhm.
being able to be on the receiving end of that. But she says a classroom that supports being brave and taking chances will allow students to feel safer taking a risk, reading something out loud, for example, and allow that growth. Embracing these mistakes as a way to grow is so powerful.
Mhm.
So true, Kim. Very true.
Yeah. I was just looking at that. I like the part about it's about being brave and taking chances will allow students to feel safer taking a risk. I think that that's huge as well. And
Right.
there are two people online or two topics that I have seen online that really resonated with me that I loved that they were doing as teachers. One of them was kindergarten as the kindergarten class is coming in, they have a chart on it. And it's how do you want to be welcomed into the class? Because as you can imagine, touch has been sort of taken out in some ways. And I understand because from a consent perspective, it's super important to get that
Right.
is this okay? But
Mm,
I think that what resonated the most with me is it still allowed some kids to be able to get hugs because they may actually need that in the morning time, but there were other options. So it was like, give me a high five or let's do a dance or
right.
it was different things like that. And I loved that because it met them where they were at in what it is that they
Hmm.
need that morning. And I was curious if it changed every morning. Like one morning, maybe they
Oh
wanted a hug.
yeah.
And other
Yeah.
times, maybe I don't want to be touched today. Give me a high
Yeah.
five.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
I love those videos too. I love where, it's like a little train of kiddos and it's a
Yeah.
teacher and they're, and yeah, and it's teaching consent. This is your body. How do you
Mhm.
want me to how do you want me to interact with it today? You know?
Agreed.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
love
such an
it.
important topic
Yeah.
that they're teaching without you really understanding as a kid, you're learning about the fact that what you want as far as people touching you is correct. So if you don't want that hug from your aunt or uncle or, whoever
Right.
it is, it's teaching them that what would you like
Right.
today? What
Yeah.
feels good for you? And also understanding that sometimes maybe they'll never want a hug from someone,
Right.
and that's okay too.
Right. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I love it.
The other one that resonated with me was another video that at first I was like, "Whoa, what?" And then as she started talking, I was like, "Oh, that makes so much sense." But it was a teacher that teaches kids how not to like each other. So just off of that topic, what's your first reaction? Like,
Yeah, because it's just reality, right? Like too often we are
Mhm,
taught to just like each other, just get along. Just get along. And getting along means that in a lot of ways, getting along means you like each other. So for
yeah,
me, when I hear that, I'm thinking, oh, cool. So they're teaching how can you respect someone without
mhm,
agreeing with them? Or how can be in the presence of somebody that just fucking irks you,
yeah,
right? Like, you know, and that happens. And and I get it, especially those of us with like strong personalities. Like
mhm.
I constantly am thinking like, there's no way I could be everybody's cup of tea. There's just no way, right? Like you don't, not everybody wants this up in their business. Like, and I get that,
I
there are
can't
mornings.
understand that, Kate. I just can't understand that.
There are like once or twice a month where I wake up and I'm like, oh, Kate, you're too much. You're too much for me today, Kate.
Uh,
Take a chill pill.
Anybody that told me they did not get along with Kate, I'd be like, "What's wrong with you?
I'm sorry.
How can you not like Kate?" Uh, and
Uh,
so some of the things they were
but it's
teaching
a
on
real
this,
thing.
yeah, it was about conflict resolution skills. And so it
Right.
was, you don't have to always like someone, but you also don't publicly need to tell others. So you don't talk behind
Mm.
their back. That was point number 1. And so think of us as adults. Like sometimes we're not always good at that. And
Right.
so one of the other ones was, you just because you don't like someone doesn't mean you make them not like themselves. So you don't try to make
Oh,
someone feel bad about themselves. And I
wow.
think that as kids, that's probably one of the key things a lot of times they maybe don't understand, is that they start,
Yes.
going at them, and in it ends up impacting that person's mental state of starting to think these negative things about themselves.
Yeah, because this is a really interesting point because when kiddos don't like each other, um, they they do tend to say like, well, I don't like that you do this. Like they're pointing it out. I want you to know I don't like this about you, right?
Right.
And yeah, I've not thought about it in that way. Like what's underlying there is you're almost trying to get them to agree with you about what you don't like about that. And
Yeah,
instead, you don't have to. You can just have that feeling and keep it.
exactly. The
Yeah.
third one was, don't isolate or exclude them. So if you
Mm,
happen to be in a group setting, you don't like try to have them not be in a group. So if you're all at lunch, for example, that person has no one to sit with, you trying to isolate them or exclude them is not acceptable either.
yes. Right. It's just not. It's if you're in a group setting, that's not fair. It's
Yeah.
simply not fair because you're just one person who may not like that person or may not, want that person involved, but it's not fair because you're not the one making the rules for the group,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And then the fourth one was don't gang up or try to overpower people. Don't recruit others not to like them.
Mm,
And then the fifth one I think is the best one is use good communication skills to set boundaries. So try talking through it, but it's okay with telling them that you need space because these are the things that continue to bother you. So it's about
yes,
you. Like it's bothering me. I'm not
right.
telling you that you're wrong or it's wrong. I'm just letting you know that this is something that bothers me, so I'm going to ask that we have some space. So I thought that that was really a cool exercise that I have never seen a teacher do in teaching kids that it's okay to be different. It's okay to not really like someone, but here are
Yeah.
the things that you could do that negatively, really negatively impact someone. And these are the things you don't want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I know some adults that could use this lesson. you
Yeah.
know, it's hard. And I think it is embedded in us in a young age, right? To
Yeah.
that, we just kind of all do that
Yeah.
or have done that. And I think that's so wonderful. I love that. I love that
I do
you
too.
found that and have shared that today. That's awesome.
Yeah, I just really love that. And so whenever I think about good teachers, I think of people like that. Like the
Mhm.
last question, the question that my daughter's teacher asked, tell us something that you're grateful for. That to me tells me a lot about this teacher because
Yes.
she's trying to understand her kids. I can tell by the questions that she asked, but that question in itself really stood out to me because she's
Yeah.
wanting to understand more about what's important to you. What is it that you feel? Do you feel grateful for things? Like
Right.
where are you on the level of things that are important to you or that you consider important to you? And my
Hmm.
daughter said her friends, and so that was
Aw.
her answer. So
Yeah, and then that tells her teacher, like, okay, this is a very social creature.
yes,
That is what she is grateful for, and that is Riley, right? She's
it
very
is.
social. But how telling, not that, I'm not trying to like dramatize the situation, but how telling would it be if a kiddo was like, well, I'm grateful for breakfast. You might
Exactly.
you might then be like, okay, what is going on in this kiddo's life that's the first thing that they have thought of? Is there something
Exactly.
there that I may need to know about, or at least gives me a good understanding of, okay, so for some of my kiddos, it's some of the finer things in life or the
Yeah.
more, and then for some, this is a survival aspect or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah, I love
Versus the
that.
kids that said their Xbox.
Right. I am most right. I am most grateful for my PlayStation 5.
So I'm going to
Right.
pull up Bruce added some more things. So, having been on the other side of maybe
I,
professor,
no,
being
no,
a
I think
professor.
as a professor.
Oh,
Yeah.
as a professor, thank you. I think
Yeah.
that success from your students is directly related to loving the subject and
Mhm.
communicating the joy that you are still studying the subject, just like your students, but just at a different level.
Yes. How
You have
true is
thoughts on that?
this? So my friend Jenny that just came to visit us on the full moon,
Hmm.
she is an English teacher, and she truly loves what she does.
Hmm.
She works with teenagers, she works in the high school. She just loves it, and you can tell that everyone feels how much she loves it, like that she is working in her passion,
Hmm.
that helping teenagers is her passion place, and it's amazing. I love that. I love being able to see people in the careers that they were like made for.
Yeah.
And so when you love the topic, Bruce, when you love what you're teaching, when you love what you're doing, just like when you love any aspect of your career, it shows. But how cool is it when it's in a teacher student capacity? It means so much more because you're literally impacting, the way another human is digesting information that they may be getting for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And if you can do that with passion and love, that's so cool.
I love it when teachers did things in a fun way.
Yeah.
And so that to me always resonated with me. If you could figure out a creative way to explain whatever the topic is, I loved that type of teaching.
Yeah.
Making it a game, making it fun. I think that's why I know all my multiplication, because it was all done by music. And so like
Okay.
ask me, what is 9 times 4? And things like that. It's one of those things that in our generation we learned via music. And they
Yeah.
would do the record player. I think it was still a record player at that time. And
Uh-huh.
so my daughter didn't go through any of that, and she's struggling with multiplication. And I was like, so I've tried sending her things to, she doesn't want to do it, but because it was repetition in school that we just did. And for
Yep.
whatever reason, it just stuck with us.
We do that in our homeschooling. So that is, I would say that's one of the disadvantages of one of the minor disadvantages of like the school system.
Yeah.
Is that just like in business, tech is always improving. So we always go to the next level, we go to the next level, we go to the next level. And sometimes we just forget about the basics or the older stuff that still did its job with less, maybe, bells and whistles. And one of the things that we get to do with homeschooling our kiddos is, we get to bring some of those back. So we have some of these really old multiplication tables where you like push in the buttons and they, and it makes it into a game, and our kids are like, what is this magical thing? And it's just it's like, something from the 60s that does the job in a really simple, but yet fun way. Right.
Yeah. Well, I remember my niece, when we were at the cabin with my daughter, she was like, hey, let's learn the continents, or let's learn the countries in the world. She literally taught her all of the countries in the entire world, but she did it in like a game process of understanding like these little, I forgot what this is called, but where you make words or you make
yes.
ideas out of, so you can then remember the different things. So she went through and did that with her, and Riley picked it up. And so she was understanding all of the different countries throughout the entire world. And I was like, that's amazing. You just did that in like 2 days with her.
Your niece was homeschooled, right?
Yes, she was.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. See, that is one of the cool things about homeschooling, is that they come up with different games or ways to do things, or, it's just, there's more freedom for that type of stuff. I love it.
And I would love it if schools took that type of approach. If you made things more fun versus having to have that curriculum and you got to do those tests. And I get it. I get that as well. But isn't the purpose to help people learn and to make them excited about different topics? That to me is what I think is missing in schools these days, making things fun, making things topics that people get excited about and want to learn about.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the last part, right?
Mm-hmm.
When someone wants to learn it, they're so much more effective at learning it, right?
Absolutely.
So whatever you can do to make them want to learn it, like literally want to learn it, and that's plays true as an adult. Like as an adult, if I'm going to go learn Spanish, it's because I want to, that's so much more effective than 30 kids in a classroom who are in Spanish because, maybe 20 of them are there because they had to take a language,
Right.
and they're not really here for it, versus the kids who are like, yeah, I want to learn Spanish because I want to go to Spain, or I want,
Yeah. Riley was, so Spanish was one of the topics she had to apply for to be able to be in. Luckily, she was in it in 6th grade, but because her language arts class score wasn't as high, like all the other ones are super high. She's in accelerated math, she's in accelerated science, but language arts was the one that she was struggling with. And in order to get into Spanish, you had to have a better score in language arts. And so we actually reached out and said, should Riley I see that this is a criteria. Should she even submit? And he said, yes, absolutely. Well, at first she didn't make the criteria. Like they didn't accept her because she didn't make the cut, but her teacher came back to her and said, I'm going to try to get you in. And so because she had been in there and she was such an enthusiastic learner with Spanish with him, he ended up getting her into the class. And so now she'll be in it for 7th and 8th grade. And they were talking about them taking a trip to Europe and going to Spain and different places. And I loved that. But she was passionate about it. And I think he saw that from her. And that's what it helped her to get into it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I took a class. I took a trip to Spain as a sophomore, and it was one of my other favorite teachers. And it was right after a situation with one of my other favorite teachers, Mrs. Ziegler. So it was a huge turning point for me in terms of learning that language. But there were kids on that trip that I know were just there because their parents thought it was a good idea or because their parents could afford it. I worked my ass off to make money to go on that trip. Like every single cent that my mom ended up buying me my clothes, which I remember being like super excited about because we just didn't have a ton of money at the time to like do those types of things, but she ended up being able to get me a whole wardrobe for that trip, which was awesome. But I saved all the money to do it. And I immersed myself, I learned that language. I only spoke Spanish while I was there. By the end of the trip, I was dreaming in Spanish. So cool. But there were kids there that like just were there to fuck off. You could tell, they were like, and I'm sure they don't remember it nearly as fondly as I do.
Yeah. Well, Riley's asked me to go with her. She's like, you need to
you could be in a parent, one of the parent chaperones.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
She was asking me to go. I was like, okay.
Yes.
So, well, I know that we are at the end of our time, and it's so crazy because Cate and I were like, do we even have something to talk about today? And then this topic popped up in the morning, and I was like, oh, I think this might be a perfect topic for us to talk about.
And then we have things that we were going to mention that we haven't even had time to because, once it gets going. Thank you so much for interacting and being involved. I love all of the contribution, and it's amazing.
I do too. I love the interactiveness. I love you guys giving us stuff. And Bruce, thank you for stumping me every single week on a new word. And I knew what the word was, but I was like, I can't pronounce it for some reason today.
Yeah. It just didn't look right. Delineating, but it did not look like delineating. It looked, I don't know, but it was spelled correctly. I looked at it. I was like, that is how it's spelled, but yeah, I don't know why
Sometimes I get to certain words and I sometimes will struggle. I'm like, wait, what is this word?
Yeah, I do that too. You get a mispronunciation stuck in your head too. And I can't, it's so hard to shake it once it's in my head if it's mispronounced.
So every week Bruce will stump me on a word. I'm sure that'll be his thing now.
Yes. Yep.
So, but
that's the shit he's gonna badass. I mean, he said, let's badass some shit.
Well, Carrie already had to jump off. But I think the next shooting the shit, maybe we should bring Carrie and prepare her to just come shoot the shit with us. What do you think?
Did you see? Yeah, I love that idea. And did you see that she said she would have done it? She just hadn't even brushed her teeth yet.
I know.
She said, considering I've not even brushed my teeth yet, I will opt for a different week, ladies. So
exactly.
Carrie would have been here for it. She just was not prepared. So we will get her on.
Yes. And so I'm thinking the next shooting the shit, maybe in about 2 months, or I don't know, we'll have to see where it fits into the schedule, but having her come on. And I appreciate everybody this morning giving us your insight on what makes a great teacher. And so I loved this topic today.
Yeah, me too. Thank you all. It was great to hear from you all. Dodie, Bruce, Carrie, just appreciating Kim, our favorite resident teacher here.
Yes. So we will see you next week. And we'll be talking with Thomas LeMay on normalizing men's mental health. That's already out there. So go ahead and sign up for it. I'm trying to get a week ahead instead of every Thursday. And so I'm trying my best.
Yes. So let's start sharing it right now. And then, we'll be able to easily stay.
So he said, so I will be the badass keeper of the word of the week. I love it.
He's got it all. He's got all the words. So it's perfect.
It's perfect. I love it. Yeah. So Bruce will be giving us a word of the week every week, and we will learn something new. I love it.
Yes. And I hope this fuels your Friday. All thank you for being here. Go have yourselves a kick-ass weekend and kick the shit out of next week as well. And then we'll see your badasses next Friday to talk about some men's mental health. This is a topic that Sarah and I are really passionate about because obviously with the men in our lives that we care about, but we're passionate about mental health in general. And it's, it's a shame that some men don't even feel as though they can talk publicly on this topic. So we would love to continue to spread the word around this. So please join us and invite your friends.
Yeah. Invite your rugged men friends. We'll talk to them.
Yeah. The more rugged, the better.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We will see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.